Well, hello, hello. I'm Bernadette Bulacan, Chief Evangelist at Icertis, and so excited to be joined today by Sheila Dusseau of Ferring Pharmaceutical here at Clock Global Institute 2024. Good morning, Sheila.
Good morning. I'm more excited than you have to be. That's for sure.
No, I always love sitting down and talking to you. And as you know, I have learned so much from you and from what you've been doing at Ferring. And so I hope to just spend a few minutes so everyone can experience your brilliance and how you've transformed legal ops Ferring. So first of all, introduce yourself and tell us a little bit more about Ferring and your role at Ferring.
Hi, you're so kind, Bernadette. You always make me feel so great, and so I really appreciate about it. So about me. So let's see. Came to Ferring in 2019, going on 5 years. Actually, 5 years there a few days ago, but 5 years in Switzerland with Ferring later on this year. And that's after 10 years in legal ops in the US before that. And so I'm, as somebody said earlier, I'm a pioneer. I was referring to myself as one of the oldies in legal ops.
I like pioneer.
I like it better too.
Oldies is not so great. It means you are seasoned and you are a veteran, but I like pioneer. I think that is extremely apt.
We'll go with that.
You will go with that. Tell us a little bit about your legal department. How are you structured? How many people are in legal ops? How many lawyers, paralegals, other professionals in the department?
Certainly. But first, we're not a legal department. We're a chief legal officer organization, so a CLO team. And that says a lot about the structure. And the way I like to explain it to folks, especially people outside of legal, is if you think about the GC or the chief legal officer, there's sort of an umbrella under him of all the different teams. And so it's not just legal, where we certainly have our legal teams. We're split up between our R&D legal team, of course, because we're a pharmaceutical company, our U.S. legal team, and then the legal team that serves sort of the rest of the organization, such as procurement, tech ops, and so on. So we've got these great legal specialists, and they make up about 1/3 of the organization. So it's super important to point that out because not our entire organization are lawyers. And so that makes a big difference in what we do and how we handle things. And then the rest of the organization are our corporate secretarial team, our compliance team, our privacy team, our IP team, and legal ops. So thus the CLO organization, and not just being legal. We're somewhere around mid-16 number of people at the moment, kind of in flux. And the legal ops team, I am super fortunate and happy to say, is growing. And so we're going to be 6 soon with 2 open positions right now that we're filling.
That's terrific. I mean, again, I love how expansive your view is about the delivery and the value that this team, say it again, a CLO
organization.
A CLO organization. Because I do think sometimes we focus too much just on the lawyers, and it is so far more expansive than that. And if you know who is on your team and all of the skills that they bring, that allows you as ops to augment and help them take those things that are very specific and very special to them and really focus and augment that. And so I love the fact that you are thinking not just about a department where you happen to have a bunch of lawyers, but that is far more expansive.
Yeah, and the bonus is we get to change the conversation. It's no longer lawyer and non-lawyer. So 2 terms I really hate. Actually, I hate
especially
the second term.
hate non-lawyer.
Yeah. And so that it makes it super easy. It's, professionals, whether it's a lawyer, a compliance professional, a privacy specialist, a legal ops specialist, and so many different occupations within the team and skill sets. And so it makes it a lot easier to have that conversation as all professionals all working together.
So this sounds like it has been an evolution in thinking and in execution. I'm curious about how this way of thinking has transformed your role in operations, serving, again, a much more expansive view than just serving the legal department. Can you tell me a little bit about how your role has changed, and maybe what were you doing 5 years ago and what are you doing now?
So 5 years ago, I was hired as head of legal ops, not CLO ops, and asked to come in and immediately implement two systems, one being e-billing and one being contract management. And what's changed since then has been not only this transformation to CLO formally and my role being now head of CLO operations and innovation, but it's also helped change the conversations across the team and change that image that legal ops is there to basically tell the lawyers what to do or help the lawyers or whatever the flavor of the day is that you want to use when you're describing it, but change the conversation to a true part of the CLO organization. And so we've been challenged with having to learn a lot more about a lot of different areas than just what the lawyer's doing. And I hear so many legal ops professionals come to me and ask me, how do you handle the lawyers? Like, how do you get them on your side? And everything's about the lawyers. And I used to think that was the hardest thing in the world. And the biggest part of our job now, to me, the hardest thing in the world is figuring out all the different disciplines, figuring out how to deal with them, how to manage, how to work side by side with them. And so yeah, a lot has changed, but the building blocks are still there, still the same principles, still the same need for strategic thinking, humility, integrity, collaboration, and change management, especially.
Funny how so many things can change, but those foundational pieces always, always, always remain the same. And I love the fact that innovation, I know it's a title, but I think it's so important to have that. I think it really it allows you not just to execute, which I am sure you and team are doing, but it also puts this mandate of strategy on your plate as well. And again, all of those things like collaboration, all of those good EQ skills really come into play. You mentioned that obviously we have a shared love about contracting and CLM transformation. I'd just be curious if you could share a story about what were some of the pains, especially as a global organization, a regulated company in pharmaceutical. I mean, you have some pretty distinct pain points as it relates to contracting. So go back 5 years ago when you first got this mandate from your CLO, I assume. What were some of the drivers driving that transformation?
So one of the biggest drivers was the amount of time that our lawyers were involved in contracting. And then the flip side of that was the business feeling like there was either a gap or a loss in support if they didn't happen to have the lawyer's ear. So sometimes they were going and doing contracting entirely on their own. And then you mentioned the regulated industry and how complex it can be. And so obviously that may present risk for you or for our company. It may present some gaps and definitely represents lost opportunity. And so our big compelling use case for it was to try to get the lawyers out of the transaction as much as possible, but at the same time, get the transactions in one place. So it was a really kind of tricky proposition.
It's very funny because that one of your guiding principles was get the lawyers out. But again, I think that goes to how your team has approached CLO operations, which is identifying the cast of characters, identifying where they're. I think that is, and there are many wonderful things that lawyers can do with particular contracts, but segmenting where they should be involved and where they shouldn't be involved is a change in regular thinking. And so I'm curious how you approached those attorneys and other professionals that were highly involved and had them be inspired to relinquish maybe that thing that they had a great deal of comfort with, or the thing that even though they may have hated doing it, but it was the thing that they did. So how did you do some of that change management, especially as you're introducing new technology or new processes?
Do you mean the lawyers that lived and breathed by contracts and identified by it?
Exactly those people.
Yeah, we had some of those. It was really interesting, and it was eye-opening for me at the beginning. So how we approached it began with a journey of acknowledging that. So pulling the key lawyers in a room and asking them right off, take a few minutes to think about it, and then tell the room how much time you spent on contracting on average every month and given in a percentage. And so those lawyers went around the room, and the newest one, who had started just a couple weeks after I did, said 50%. And I thought, well, that's reasonable. She's new. She's going to have to get involved in a lot of contracts right now to try to kind of learn the lay of the land. And then as we went around the room and went around seniority as far as years of experience, the percentage got higher and higher.
Oh, higher and higher.
It got to 90%. And so it was astounding. And I had to stop myself from saying, are you serious?
Did you hear my audible gasp? I'm like, because you just think of like, for me, the more seniority in legal that I would have as a lawyer, the idea is the less time I am spending on contracts and getting out of that game.
Absolutely. But if you think about it, and even as they said at the time, the ones that were 80 and 90%, they said, well, this is how I connect with my clients. This is how I connect with the business and really understand it. So I think they had just not been given another approach to it. And so that was a good moment to kind of step back and think about it. And then, of course, there's a reality. And my CLO loves to lately show this chart and talk about it. And that is the reality of how much a lawyer costs you. So what's the fully loaded cost of an in-house counsel? And it's pretty high. They're really seasoned professionals, went to school a long time, have a lot of experience, and so they demand a higher wage. You think about that versus a contract manager type professional, or an alternative legal services providers that a lot of us use for contracting. And there's a stark difference between that fully loaded cost between the two. So is that really where you want that high-powered, high-salaried resource spending their time on contracts that can be done simpler, better, faster, faster, by a lower cost resource? There was that stark reality as well. And that was my first realization that okay, we've got a challenge here. We've got a real challenge, but a real opportunity with our CLM. So we started on that journey from there by involving those same lawyers in the system, in the implementation, in the design of it, in the strategy along the way as well. So I came in the door with a strategy in mind and okay, wham, bam, I'm going to do this. I know exactly how to implement a CLM, no problem at all. And then that moment in the room with those lawyers and that 90% made me rethink it all.
Yeah. I'm always reminded, especially in CLM is always complex. And one of the biggest mistakes I see, especially when you're using a really robust tool like Icertis, is that we need more stakeholders involved and get that input. And I thought that approach was just brilliant and led you to greater success. And that's not to say that it was an easy journey all the way through, but
no one would say that.
No one would say that because it is hard. It is hard and it is complex. And again, having to bring all of those voices to bear while inherently challenging and complex leads to better outcomes at the end. And so I applaud you that you put in that hard work, and it is hard work. And even just the fact that that oftentimes you had thought, I have a strategy, I'm going to do X, Y, and Z, but that you were even open-minded to be like, all right, I'm going to pump the brakes on what I think should happen, be fed by a lot of this input from this robust group of people that will be using the tool, either using the tool day to day, using data from the tool, and get that feedback and do it right. I want to ask you a question because you had brought this up. I think you have a really what I'll call ideal and unique relationship with your CLO. I mean, I think that Kurt is one of the most tech-forward CLOs that I know. Can you tell a little bit about how the two of you work together, especially on things like innovations like CLM and adoption and the process change that is required to be successful in these tools?
Yeah, absolutely. I think the essential part of how we work together, the thing that really makes it work well is we're not afraid to have those hard conversations about what the
Mm.
strategy is, where each of us are on it, and what needs to be done. So he's really good. And I think it took us a little while once I came on board to kind of reach this synergy, but he's really good about helping me understand the path and sort of resetting the path if needed. And so I, of course, came in the door, 10 years of legal ops experience, thought I knew everything there was to know, and thought I was coming here to Ferring and getting to kind of just show all the things that I could do and all of that. Quickly realized, actually, maybe not quickly, as we were implementing the CLM, realized that he had, maybe a little bit different path than I had in mind.
Mm.
And his was, as you said, very driven, but also very innovative. He really loves to challenge the status quo. He loves to think of things differently. And so he was constantly challenging me and asking me questions and asking me why, but why, but why. And I could do one of two things. I could revert into, listen, dude, I'm the legal ops pro here. Just do it.
You're like, did you not hear 10 years of experience doing this?
Yeah, this is what you hired me for. I could do that. Or I could say, well, wait a minute. What were you thinking then? What was your expectation? What was your vision then of how we would do this? And what are the milestones you're looking for? What are the outcomes you're looking for? And that was one of the most important questions that I learned to ask him is, okay, Kurt, right at this moment, next 3 months, what are you expecting of me? What's the top priority on your list that you want me to do? And I have to remind myself to do that pretty often because he is so forward thinking and innovative, and sometimes his path changes in an instant. But that's been a real key to the synergy and the connection that we have and the ability, I think, to continue moving forward and doing the things is that stopping and asking, double checking, making sure we're still on the same path.
So you've already mentioned a couple of really good practices to bring a really expansive team to bear in the strategy of deploying CLM and thinking of processes. The second one is having a really strong relationship with your CLO, the being ready to respond to the why, the how, and to be able to pivot. And so all of the communication skills and that alignment is so important. Any other best practices, especially again, I'll say it again, you are global, you are a growing company, you're a highly regulated company, like any other best practices or any things that you saw in hindsight that you would change if you were back on day one or week one or month one? Yeah.
3 come to mind that seem to be almost equally important. So I can't say one without the other. So one is our approach to the templates that we put into the system. And as you know, we've talked about it a lot. We did a really painful upfront harmonization effort with a lot of workshops where, as one of my lawyers loves to say, it brings up the worst nightmares for her whenever I mention it. But we got the lawyers in a room with our templates. At the time, I think it was 21 different MSA templates, and had them negotiate against each other until we got one harmonized MSA template, which was fabulous, even though it was super hard and painful, and I think took a good solid 2 weeks. But then we had the majority of the clauses you use in all of your other contracts. We already had those down to our best foot forward clauses for Ferring. And we're able then to just cascade those to all our templates. So that was a really great sort of groundbreaking moment for us and a really great way to start the CLM. So something we did right from the start.
Yeah.
The second thing we didn't do quite right from the start, even though we thought we were, and that is involving the user. And we did really great in involving them from the start. We did all the things you're supposed to do for change management, asked them what they wanted, anticipated what they wanted. We spent so much time with the lawyers that had been doing all those contracts for the business users. We had those lawyers sit and write scripts of what the conversations went like and give their perspective. And so we anticipated all that. We built this amazing system in Icertis using those scripts as questions for the users to walk through. And then we realized later, the users don't want all those questions. They don't want to have to do all those things. They just want the system to do it for them. So the key thing that we forgot that we didn't do right from the beginning is design the system from the user's perspective, not ours,
Mm.
and having in that really human touch, that human design in it. And so that was super important. And once we flipped that on its head and we started approaching every problem, every request, every comment from a user with that way of thinking from their perspective, and how can we make the system more human design, human oriented, things got way better. Our user satisfaction rate went way up. Our comments went way up. We actually have fans of the system now, people that come and say, hey, my coworker doesn't use it. How can I help you get them to use it? Where before they were running from it and saying, please don't catch me. Don't make me do it.
We love fans of the system. Thank you. So you mentioned the template harmonization, the deep empathy that is required to design and all of that feedback. I mean, what was the third?
The third is digital assistant in the system. And so we have Whatfix deployed in the system. It's sort of my secret little agent in there. It's been really critical for us to be able to continue that human design element, because Whatfix allows us to sort of overlay on top of the system, and they allow us to stick in little pop-up questions and little helpful hints. And now they're even beginning to develop some AI and some features that work seamlessly with the system, with Icertis, where it can anticipate what the next moves are. And so we're actually even able to remove user clicks from a typical transaction in the system, making it faster. And so that digital assistant piece has been that sort of next level, next notch in the user acceptance for us.
That's terrific. We are big fans of Whatfix, and I'm so glad to hear that just, again, we try to bring great partners in to do, and I know Whatfix has been extraordinary.
It's been the trifecta with Whatfix, Icertis, and our team, and really good partnership. And rocky at first, we all know that.
Yeah.
And once we had that realization that we didn't quite design the system adequately for the user instead of the lawyers, the three partners coming together to fix that and turn that around was phenomenal. So I can't say enough.
No, I think those are all really, really great practices, especially as people are thinking about their CLM journey or by just taking their first baby steps. So I'm curious about what's next for the Ferring legal department.
Wow, it's so much. I'll focus on contracting since we're there.
Yeah.
So next for us is a wig. And
a wig?
Tell me more. And not what's on your head as I put my hand in my hair. No, it's a wildly improbable goal. So I love telling this to our partners. And so I've told it to our Icertis team. I've told it to Factor Law, who are doing our contract management piece outside the system now. And that is, imagine an environment, a world down the road one day, a wig, where contracts are either not needed or they're so easy and efficient and innovative that nobody ever wants to negotiate them. Everybody just wants to sign and move on.
Yeah.
Done in a minute or even less. And so that's our wig. We want to get there. And the reason that we tell our partners this is not because we expect them to build this. We don't expect to have this in a year. It's because we want them to go on the journey, embark on that journey with us to find out how to get there. And so that's, in the stars, way up. And if we land a little bit short of that, we're still landing like in the clouds or something.
Yeah.
And so that's our journey. That's where we're going. And so we're pushing the envelope on how can we involve AI in the system? How can we involve AI in the things that we do before and after the system? How can we digitize our playbooks? How can we make sure we have a great clause library that is reactive and continually evolving? How can we make the outsourcing piece of it faster and better and more intelligent? And how can we make our templates, as we had said earlier, human-centric and super simple? We've done the one NDA, we've done one DPA, we've done our own short-form services agreement that can be done really quickly. And we want to keep moving towards things like that, towards the wig.
I love that. I wish I know this is a podcast. My cheeks hurt because I love wigs. And not I kind of sometimes would like a pink fun one. They're kind of cool in the right place. But I love that, and that there's so many things to touch on there. The fact that it's going to take a village to help make that wig happen, that the outcome isn't overnight. But good planning, planting the seed, good planning, whether it's making sure that you have really pristine and clean data sets coming out of there, that you are really cognizant of those human design processes, that where people touch it, what do they need? What does it really need humans here? What can we do to build around that, but to still give your teams confidence in the final outputs, confidence that even after a contract leaves legal, that the business can still interact and utilize it and realize the intent of all of those agreements when it's outside of the CLO organization. I was going to say legal department and catch myself every single time saying that. I'm excited to be part of that journey in this next chapter, the wig chapter.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And you mentioned data. I would be remiss if I didn't mention that. We've hired a legal data scientist and we've established a data lake. And we're right now pulling all of our contracting data into that. So one of our wigs is around the data as well and the stories it's going to tell us and the transformation it's going to help us with in the CLO team, the things we're going to do to justify my headcount being relatively large. Again, so fortunate to it, but there's so many changes, so many things we've already done that we're going to continue to do, and lots of wigs around that as well. Wigs around our legal services management, law firms, how we work with them. So, but the data is actually a huge part of it, and I'm glad you said that. It's really the underlying piece that's going to drive that storytelling and get us there.
Well, let's end there. What a great story. And I'm so excited to see the stories that you and your team and your CLO organization will be able to tell. They're going to be so powerful. And once again, your teams have been beneficiaries of great leadership, great planning, great strategy, and great dreaming and the makers of wigs. That is excellent. So I hope we are along on the journey with you and so excited to see what the outcomes and the stories that you'll be able to tell. It's so exciting.
Thank you. Yeah, we're super excited to have you guys because you are one of those essential partners. And that's what I talk a lot about with our vendors and suppliers is, we're looking for partners. We're not looking for someone just to deliver a service or a good. We're looking for someone who wants to have a mutually beneficial relationship and go on our path with us. So we love it.
Well, thank you. And as I have such a great, deep appreciation for you, Sheila. Like, I have learned so much from you. Even the battle of the epic, as you know, my favorite story is your template harmonization story. And the epic battle of the forms that just happened within your organization is innovative, brilliant. And again, also a testament to resilience that you need, because you can do hard things, but that it will pay dividends in the long run. So I'm so glad. So thank you so much. Happy clocking for the rest of the Institute.
Thanks. You too. Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, always. Thank you.